When supporters of Donald Trump stormed the United States Capitol in the name of their president, the vast schism in the Republican Party was laid bare. The rioters were spurred by their belief in President Trump's false allegations that the election was stolen from him. But many Republicans were horrified by the violence they saw, some joining Democrats in voting to impeach the president for incitement of insurrection. Even the Senate Majority Leader at the time, Mitch McConnell, who's always stood by the former president, explicitly blamed him for the riot.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
But other Republican lawmakers, wary of the influence he still holds over millions of voters, have played down Mr. Trump's role in the violence. Republican Rand Paul initiated the first on-the-record test for senators of their support for convicting the former president on the impeachment charges.
This proceeding, which would try a private citizen and not a president, a vice president, or civil officer, violates the Constitution.
45 out of 50 Republicans agreed, voting to consider stopping the trial before it even starts. That won't happen, but it does suggest that only a handful of Republicans will side with Democrats to convict the former president.
The pragmatists within the Republican Party want to divest themselves, in effect, of what has become the toxic legacy of Donald Trump. And that's what we're seeing with Mitch McConnell and others right now. But that's not so easy. Donald Trump still has an enormous following among Republicans.
That following could lead him to run for president again in 2024. There are even reports that he's considering forming a new political party. Political historian Alan Lichtman says the divisions in the GOP are reminiscent of those which tore apart the Whig Party in the 1850s, allowing the modern Republican Party to emerge.
There's a real possibility for the party splitting in two, which would mean, like the Whigs, the party will be replaced by another party. You can't have two factions of the Republican Party and still make them viable in a winner-take-all political system like we have here. I'm not predicting necessarily that there will be this reordering of the party system that hasn't happened in, 150 and more years, but it's certainly a possibility.
But Mr. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, believes the devotion of his supporters may start to wane.
It will become increasingly apparent that he's yesterday's news and his influence will drop dramatically. I think there's got to be a serious conversation within the Republican Party. I think that, in fact, has already started, and I expect it to go on, to try and correct the damage that Trump has done. And I do think he's done damage. He's done damage to the country. He's done damage to the party.
Donald Trump may have left Washington, but America's capital city is still being patrolled by thousands of armed soldiers ahead of his impeachment trial in less than 2 weeks' time. And his supporters are still being investigated and arrested for storming the Capitol. The fences remain surrounding this once accessible beacon of American democracy. It's not just the Republican Party that's been upended by the Trump presidency, but the American political system as a whole. Kate Fisher, SABC News, Washington.